The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hello, and welcome to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. My name is Joni Siegel, and I am the co-founder with my husband, Steve Siegel, and your host for these interviews. If you've been watching it more than a couple times, you're probably sick of seeing me, but it's me. I'm the host, and today's episode is episode number 345. Today we have an interview with a gentleman named Lang Martinez. Lang is a returning NAASCA family member. NAASCA stands for National Association of Survivors of Child Abuse. When the topic of homelessness is brought up in Ventura County, a single name comes quickly to mind: Lang Martinez. Martinez has built a reputation for himself as a known homeless advocate to have come from the same streets he now walks through with his head held high. His peer-to-peer approach has cemented his name among other professionals in this field. Lang is an ambassador advocate for survivors of sexual abuse, the 12-step program, and recently celebrated his 5-year celebration of living drug and alcohol free. Well done, Lang. He continues to be a persistent advocate for those experiencing chronic homelessness and believes that if he can recover, others can too. Today, Lang shares his story of what it takes to recover from a serious methamphetamine addiction that left him homeless and dead on the streets of Oxnard, almost dead. Lang Martinez is fighting for his life. He's fighting to stay sober. He's fighting to stay out of prison. He's fighting sudden blindness and a civil court case against the man who raped him as a child. On the flip side, he has surrounded himself with surrogate professionals who believe Lang can survive. Without further ado, let's talk to Lang Martinez. Lang Martinez, thank you for being willing to be on the podcast today and sharing your story with us. I know that it's quite the story.
Yes, ma'am. It's an honor being here and actually meeting you in person. It was.
Thank you. Yes, I should let the listeners know that my son had a film premiere recently, and Lang came to Los Angeles to the film premiere, and so I got to meet him in person, which was really, really nice. I appreciate you doing that as well.
Well, yeah, it was definitely an honor, and I you got to look back, 5 years ago, or in my addiction for 30 years, to be invited to a place such as that in an event. What was like a child waking up, talking to Santa Claus, asking for the blue bicycle, and you got it. Because I'm 60 years old, and I got to meet you and see those people and sit there and watch a film that was a preview. And it was like, I just sat there and I said, wow, you know what? God is good, and the program's good, and the people that love me are good. And I'm very blessed. It was an honor, man.
You've come a long way, baby.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so take us back. Tell us where you grew up, what your childhood was like, and tell us about you.
Well, I grew up, I was born in Inglewood, and we ended up moving to Westchester, which is it's a beach area over by Playa del Rey. It's on, west side Los Angeles, Redondo, Manhattan. So I ended up, eventually, I went to parochial school, and for parochial school, I ended up going into public schools over Wright and then Westchester. But the thing with me growing up is I didn't find out I was Mexican until I was 11 years old. And the way that I found out was really traumatic. But my father that adopted me, his name's Huff. So my name legally it's Martinez, but I went by the name Huff because I didn't know any better. I was baptized. And back in the day, if you were baptized, it's on your baptismal, that's your name. I'm Lang Huff. So I had two stepbrothers. I had a stepbrother and a stepsister. And they didn't get the things that I got from my Martinez family. So there's an article that I was blessed that was written. It was called Ventura County Homeless Advocate Seeks Redemption, and Mark Alvarado wrote it. And he did a deep dive into my family, my past, and what makes Lang tick. Well, I'm connected to my Martinez family. My grandfather was one of the head people of the newspaper La Opinion. It's the largest Hispanic newspaper in the United States, and it's now owned by the LA Times. So my mom was 15 and a half years old, and she went to Westchester High School. And my father, Horacio, was a good-looking man, and he pulled up to my mom, and he said, "Would you like some candy, little girl?" My mom was broken as well, you know. Her father did some things to her. So my mom meets this guy. He's 15 and a half. She's 15 and a half, and he already has a home and connected to the law Pinion. He's a Martinez, good-looking guy. My mom ends up getting pregnant with me. So my mom got pregnant at the age of 15 and a half, and during her pregnancy, my mom's mom died when my mom was pregnant with me. And my mom had issues because she thought it was God. And, my mom actually walked into a church and she told everybody how she felt about God, especially taking her mother with me in her stomach. Well, when my mom gave birth to me, as women do, my mom put on some weight. So what happened is my father, being all about himself and very ego and very vain, my father didn't want my mom to have on that excess weight having a child. He even went and got a vasectomy. So he basically never wanted me. And then what he did is he put locks on the refrigerator and on the cupboard. And he wanted to make my mom go outside and do jumping jacks or whatever to lose weight. And eventually my dad, my real father, ended up pulling up in the driveway with another woman in the car. And my mom packed up my great-grandmother. My grandmother's passed away, but my great-grandmother was with us. And she packed us up, and they moved to obviously my father owned the home. And my mom didn't want to take it, and she packed up, and she took me and my great-grandmother and got an apartment in Westchester. And my mom started, and back in the day, the term was sling hash. She became a waitress. And my mom, she loved me. So the Martinez family came in and said, "You can't raise Lang. We offer Lang, college. We have money, and you're too young. You're a little girl. You're as a child. We'll take Lang." And my mom said no. My mom said, "No, you're not." So being young and my mom loving me, wanting to put in a father in my life, my mom ended up marrying a man who did love me, never put hands on me or my mother. But we married into a family of wolves, my Huff family. So they were white people. I mean, I was raised white, so I'm not trying to be racist, but, white. And they knew that I had this name Martinez,
Right.
So they were alcoholics, and being alcoholics, they were vicious. And I took some abuse from them. I took some abuse from my uncles, and one of my uncles was very racist, and he did bad things. His name was Skip. And then being around the alcohol family, going to the lakes and Coors beer and all that. I used to hang out with my cousin Rodney, and my cousin Rodney was my favorite. He's on the Huff side, and my Aunt Sandy was she was an aunt. She was beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes, and it's like a young kid has a crush on her aunt. And she was drinking one day, and my cousin and I were playing the slot car tracks. I think they were called Tyco back then. And my Aunt Sandy says to me, she says, "Lang, did you know that Rodney's father's the mailman?" And I said, "What are you talking about, Aunt Sandy?" "Well, yeah, he's the mailman." "My brother Gary isn't your father. You're a Mexican." And the whole world came crashing down. I'm confused. I'm very confused. So I was a part of something that wasn't right, but now I'm on the outside, really. I'm 11 years old. I get in the car. I asked my mom, and she says, "We're going to go talk to your dad." So my dad told me the truth, and he said that no matter what, you're my son. And that's the man that raised me, even though it was dysfunctional. So growing up in a situation like that and talking about the parochial school, having a stepbrother and sister, you still have the Martinez family, kicking in with child support, making sure Lang has the best things, OP shorts. Lang went to parochial school, Lang got braces, and the other siblings didn't get that. So when it came to Sundays, when I'm in a parochial school, Good Shepherd, I'm the one going to church.
sometimes. The hardest thing about getting someone into recovery is getting them to agree to treatment. Bobby Newman, a certified drug counselor with 30 years experience and an over 85% success rate as an interventionist, has created a series of 12 videos that you can use right now to learn every step to get your loved one to agree to treatment. Call 866-989-4499 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby. Appreciate you listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. We don't do this podcast because we are former addicts. We don't do this podcast because we have loved ones who have suffered from addiction. We do this podcast because we feel that addiction is one of the biggest problems facing the world today, and that no matter who you are, no matter your religion, no matter your income status, no matter your race, no matter anything about you, addiction affects you. This podcast is a free resource for anybody looking for help with addiction. If you would like to contribute to our podcast, please go to bit.ly/fightdrugs. That's https://bit.ly/fightdrugs. And make a donation of whatever amount you would like. Thank you for supporting us.
I got to go to church. You know what I mean? Lions
Yep.
going to church.
Yep.
They're not going to church. So I was confused in there. You know, I even had problems there as well. Yes, ma'am.
No, all I was going to say was you were sexually abused, weren't you?
Well, you know how that story goes is,
And you don't have to go into the details of it if you don't want
well,
to.
yeah. Well, I think the details, you know, it's what I do as far as, you know, both being a homeless advocate and also, you know, being under umbrellas like Children of the Night and being part of NAASCA, you know, National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. You know, I'm an ambassador for them. I'm a speaker and I've done some stuff with them as well, Bill Murray. When I was 17 years old, I was going to high school, racing BMX, and I had a job at a bike shop, and these guys tell me about this job. So I'm going to be a little careful because I have one of the first cases, but we'll get into it, about this job. So I quit the bike shop. I go to work for this place, and this guy's a major cocaine dealer. He's Hollywood. And so you got young boys there. And what's happened is you do lines on these mirrors when you cut this glass, and you know, some of it would get deducted from your check, you know, from the workers. You know, back then a quarter gram was 25, a gram was 100. You're making what, $1.75 an hour or whatever. You know what I mean? You're not making really any money. And doing cocaine, you know, I remember I split and got a half gram from a friend of mine with medium, got a half gram, drank some Michelob's, and it was the greatest thing, cocaine. You know, you had that Peruvian plate back in the day. You know, it was the best. You know, your teeth are going numb and you're drinking beers, but it's $50. So, you know, you got to split a half gram and it don't go very long.
Right.
So this guy took a liking to me, and that's what these people do, is they groom. So broken home, working there, got the attitude, putting on the facade, and he calls me to the side. He says, would you like to learn the cocaine trade? Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. So he taught me everything there was about the coke and how to cut it, how to bag it, and how to sell it. And I wanted Hollywood. So at that time, we were going to a place called the Odyssey. My story is connected to Eddie Nash. Yeah, I don't know if you remember the movie Wonderland, the Wonderland Murders.
I've heard of it, but I don't know if I've seen it. But anyway, Go ahead.
Eddie Nash back in the 80s was a known gangster. He had all the cocaine, owned nightclubs. He owned the Odyssey, the Troubadour. He owned quite a few clubs, strip clubs. He was in the porno business. And he had this club, and it was a club for all ages. All ages.
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast, or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review.
So from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning, you have all ages. And then you have the bar, so you have adults there as well. So I'm working for this guy, and he's getting his stuff from this man, and I'm selling cocaine in the club. 28 grams, you're putting on 28, that's 100. You're pulling $5,600 on an ounce. Or if you're doing the big quantities, I'm taking it. I had people to protect me. And he was bisexual, but I had a girlfriend, so he knew that. But in this club, the Odyssey, it was broken people. It's Hollywood, stars, kids, runaways, everything, whether it was homosexual, bisexual, trisexual, heterosexual, everybody was there. It was a lot of young people having a good time. So I was there. So eventually, being in that club, I told that story in one of the articles. Hollywood didn't want it. I saw what took place, and while it was taking place, being a part of that world, I didn't really understand. You know what I mean? I mean, young men, young women, men having relationships with older guys. That's what took place back then. It was crazy. So eventually, what happened was my mom put on an investigation, and I can talk about that. She wrote, was an article I wrote. It was called "The Truth About Nobody Knows About My Sexual Abuse." I only wrote that because of the conversation that I had, so I could release it because of who he is. So I do have the first case in California that goes back 42 years, and it names the perpetrator. His name's Kevin Scott Hamilton. So it names it's on my Google, so I'm not saying anything. So we're in Superior Court now.
Yep.
So what I'm talking about, the crimes that he committed there. So what happened eventually is my mom loved me so much that she was watching the place, and this I can't talk about. I wrote it in the article, and because I spoke to him. And my mom had my sister in the car. My mom pulls up, and she puts a gun to his head, and she says, I want you to stay away from my property. And he ended up whispering something in her ear, and she left. My sister was in the car, and there was some things happened. So to speed it up a little bit, not to speed up. So
fast forward.
It was 1981. I was at a Cher concert. Cher was with Les Dudek at that time, right after she divorced Greg Allman, and she was going with a guy named Les Dudek. Les Dudek had a band called the Black Rose. And Cher did that album. It's called Black Rose. So I was there. So what happened is this man eventually, after that concert, he raped me at gunpoint.
Wow.
He raped me at gunpoint.
And you were how old by then?
I was 17.
Oh, man.
So I was being groomed the whole time, just like everybody else, and it's not going to happen to me. But these individuals, I was being with part of NAASCA, and other things, and speaking on it with people that make me understand. It was a whole process of grooming, because what happens in a situation like this is you're groomed. I love you. You couldn't have anything. You protect me. Having a relationship with a man isn't the same with a woman. We can go play basketball. It was a process.
Yep.
And then it came down to the issue because of my mother's involvement, and eventually, it ended up happening again. So I was very fortunate because of the laws that we were able to go back and go after this guy, because it was a recessed memory because in my stories, I've had sobriety 3 times 5 years. Why the 5 years? I never knew. Lang, did you do the program? Lang, did you do the step? Lang. Yeah, I just couldn't fucking take the pain.
Right.
Well, I figured out what the pain was back in 2018. My sobriety date's July 25th, 2018. And where I was at homeless down there in Fernando Western, you know, a lot of things happened, and I knew what happened to me. It was something that's always been there. So I got
something like that that's that traumatic, I can totally understand why the mind just covers it up, because that's a very heavy duty thing for a young man to have to confront.
Well, yeah, it's a lot, you know, and working in addiction, you saw my file, working with the homeless or working with other survivors or being a speaker on the subject. I now know that unless for male, I talked about this woman in one of the interviews I did, but for myself, to speak for myself and as a man, well, if you look at the program of Alcoholics Anonymous or any 12-step program, they want to give you stats, 5% after 5 years, 2 UB after whatever, and I understand why it was at 95%. 5 years, bam, 5 years, bam. So what I did is I had to get transparent, and I had to get honest, and I had to be able to tell that story, and I had to work on myself on a professional way, whether it's through church, God, number one, church, the 12 steps. I love the 12 steps. I apply it, the 12 steps. I love the promises, the traditions. It does say God 400 times. So I do believe in God. That's what I choose. When I cried out to God, I said, God, will you save my life? I'll give it all back to you. That's what I try to do on a daily basis. I give him to him what he's given me, and that's my life. So,
Lang, how did you? Wait a minute. I'm going to take you back. So when this whole happened, the rape and the horror, were you addicted at that point, or did you become addicted after that?
Well, no. It was like that song Snowblind. Yeah, you were doing all the coke you could do. I mean, you were
okay.
You were cutting rails. Back then you were taking the Quaaludes, the raw 714s. You were drinking dollar beers because you had money. Those were Heinekens back then. They were called dollar beers because even back then in the 80s, the green beers, they were $1. So it was part of that whole thing, So I got to be a part of the scene. I met lots of stars. I sold to them. And it was just crazy back then. And then freebasing came out. That's what, I ended up, that's what the ether. And then when you separate, you pull it. And I ended up actually going on a run one time down to the valley, and I ended up doing a drop off to Richard Pryor. And he was sitting in the left, and his boxers had a towel, hair was out, and he was calling for somebody, is he here? Yeah.
Okay. So how did you get out of that scene? How did you get out of that?
Well, I ended up getting arrested.
Okay.
At the ages right before a few months before I turned 18. I got taken down to Inglewood PD with somebody that protected me, and I ended up I had a gun, and things were happening, and not killing anybody, but I had a weapon. Somebody basically saved me, and I ended up getting beaten up by Inglewood PD, and then I ended up getting transferred to Daniel Freeman Hospital. My aunt was the chief of staff there, and so by her being that, my parents came. They took care of me, and then I ended up going to Westwood Hospital because I wasn't 18 yet. So to get control of me and get me the help, I went to a hospital down in the nice area, Santa Monica, on Barrington and Bundy. Yeah.
Okay. And did you graduate high school or?
No. I told you no. I left school in 11th grade to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they got you out and got you in the hospital, and what happened then after that?
Well, I got out of the hospital and, no longer had that girlfriend, met somebody. I think I'm 19. Always been involved in sales. So I ended up getting a job as a salesman. But what happened is being an addict and talking about the disease itself, I ended up using cocaine again. I ended up buying cocaine, quarter grams. I ended up start freebasing. I'm losing the job. I'm losing apartments. All kinds of things are happening. And I do what I do best in my addiction is I'm a thief. I steal from I steal from stores. I'm a bullshitter. I talk about that.
Okay.
Not an armed robber. I'm a
Yep.
petty ass.
Yep.
Back then, you steal, you go to prison. But you're stealing and you're doing refunds to get the money to stay in hotels and
Yeah.
pay connection. Yeah.
Okay.
So that ended up in '86. It caught up to me, and I ended up going to prison the first time.
And how long were you there?
I did 16 months. I did 16 months the first time.
Did you
I
get
got
clean
out.
while you were in?
Well, yeah, I got clean when I went in, and then I got dirty when I got out.
Got it.
I mean, I got reviolated, when after 59 days,
Okay.
and went back. We're talking about the whole thing, so I've been very transparent. I have 4 past prison numbers.
Okay.
I have 4 California numbers. I've done probably a little over 15 years in the penitentiary. I've done maybe 3 years or 3 years in county jails. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, one of we call this podcast The Point of No Return because what we like former users to share with us is at what point did you kind of get that realization where you were either going to get clean and sober or spend the rest of your life in jail or die? What happened to cause that?
We talk about, me, in my story, in my addiction, you lose family members, you lose friends. Nobody wants to be around you. People are locking the doors, calling the police on you. You're a menace. And God always put people in my life that cared about me. So I kind of call it about God's angels that didn't let me fall. It was a process. I met people in downtown. So it started being homeless and getting picked up and going to Serenity by the Sea. It was a convention for AA. Met my sponsor. He took me home. I knew I needed a program, but he was there. We're still together today. Got in LA. It was really crazy. You'd go out this shelter called First to Serve, and you would see chalk lines and people dead around the corner with master burgers. I'm there, the crip area called Rolling 60s. I'm surviving because of my prison background, and going down alleys, and that's what triggered me is that going down the alley, there was a black girl, Coco, and she was a street girl, and she was sleeping on this couch, and she didn't get no money that day, but people were coming by, and they wanted favors from her all night long, and it triggered, and I knew what happened to me, and that happened, and then I was at this. I think I just got to tell them the story. I was in the shelter, and I had black people that believed in me. They actually they couldn't love themselves, and they told me I was better than that, and for me to get some help or bad things were going to happen to me. They said, "Lane, you're better than this," and I ended up making some calls, and I had a heartbeat of about 17, 18 beats a minute.
It's okay. It's okay.
And I ended up calling somebody on the phone, and they said, "Lang, you're going to die." I said, "I can't close my eyes." Yeah. They said, "You got to go." And I said, "God, I'm begging you. I just want you, please. I didn't want to die on that street, Vernon and Western, in that alley, without having an ID on me, and being a John Doe, and not giving anything back to God or to you people. And all I did was ever take." And there's a saying, it's called going out half-ass backwards. Going out half-ass backwards. I didn't want to do that. I was better. And I ended up getting into Acton on July 25th, 2018. And I was in bad shape, and they took me, and they broke the rules for me. It's a county facility, LA County program, and kind of like a jail setting, which is perfect for Lang. And I did the program. And then when I came back, I went and saw everybody I could to say, "See, hey, wow, Lang, can you go? Yeah. And then I ended up getting a job for the guy that helped me when I was in the alley, and I ended up owning his business, Ron Freeman. And then I used to be homeless at churches, ma'am.
Mm.
And the reason I slept at churches because because God forsaken me, you know. I've been sober 3 times. I've had families. I've had businesses. I've had money. It's all gone. God, why? So being homeless, caught up in addiction, trying to find what is it that I've lost? What's wrong with me? So I'd stay at churches, and sometimes pastors would come out and say, "You got 30 seconds to get out." And I said, "Why should I get it? We'll call the police. Maybe I'm here for a reason. They find me food." Well, eventually I went to this one church. Before this, we're backing up a little bit, and I would go down the church, and there's a pastor up there, and he comes down the stairs, and I'm backing up a little bit. So he says,
okay.
"What's your name, Lang? And can I use the bathroom? I got to get cleaned up so I can go hit another lick. That means steal. I got patrols running for me." And the bottom line is, he gave me his lunch. He gave me his socks, Pastor Gill, and I'm part of that church today. He's a mentor. And he said, "Lang," he said, "why don't you go turn yourself in?" And he said, "Before we do, can I pray for you?" And he said, "Lang, just look up." And when he looked up, I saw his eyes. So all these played in part into that day I got sober.
Yeah.
So when I came back here to Ventura County, Oxnard, it made a big noise, because I was homeless, slobbering on myself. I still suffer from some of the, from the effects of what it's done to me. And I started speaking to council members to counsel. And then Pastor Gill one day met me in front of my office where I was working. And in the park, there's like 60 homeless people where I used to be. And Pastor Gill says, "Look, Lang." And I didn't want to look. Nobody does. And I'm looking, and he said, "Lang," he goes, "that's your calling." And I said, "Not me." So I ended up being in humanizing the homelessness, speaking at councils. That was May 9th, 2019. The first article to ever go out in Ventura County was "Nobody Knows But Me." It's part of a series, homelessness in Oxnard, and then finally number 3 was being in a recovery magazine with Keys to Recovery. And then all of a sudden it just started hitting different things, and I interviewed, and I started fighting it for services here in Ventura County.
So it was your calling. It was your calling. Yeah.
So I'm a different kind of advocate because I believe in accountability. I believe that if I can do it, you can too.
Right.
I did something with, California Insider, as you know, and the guy asked me a question. I said, well, giving people free rides and stuff like that, it's not going to work. You have to put as much into what you were doing and your addiction into your recovery.
That's
you
right.
have to get somewhere in your head. You have to know this is broken. And as I said, it's a bad neighborhood. Don't go in it alone. Just say something. There's a saying in jail, closed mouth don't get fed. Same thing in the program. Same thing as people reaching out. I wouldn't be able to bless on the show if I didn't reach out to you. I'm trying to give something back that's given to me. So I'm a different kind of advocate. So when I go into outreach or I do stuff, whether it's with officials or LA or wherever, I'm not doing it right now. I'm not, it's kind of dangerous right now for me. So doing that, people said to me, well, what do you do this? When I go into homeless encampments or I go into areas where the homeless are, it's not about feeling good.
Right.
People go down there, they want to feed them. They go home and they feel good. And Daddy, did you feed those guys? Oh, honey, praise God. Well, you know what? You did that to feel good. I didn't. When I go down there, I'm going down there to plant the seed that you can have what I want. All you got to do is ask me. I can't tell you. And then you got to have knowledge of who to connect to for the services. Right. You got to be able to guide them. So the program says, this program was to be suggested only. Well, you can't suggest anything to a person like me. I don't know about you or others, but you suggest something to me, it's going to be all bad because I'm like a little child. You got to give me direction and tell me and then yell at me.
Yeah.
Right? And I have a village of people that give me direction every day.
Yep.
She really done that, Lang? I told you not to, but you did it your way. Yeah, I did. And how's it feel? Not too good. Don't be suggesting nothing to me.
Can't tell you anything.
No, you got to tell me. Don't suggest it.
Okay, tell
Don't
you,
let
not
me, don't,
suggest it.
yeah.
I'll remember that.
This thing's still broken. I've always been honest about that. So just help guide me and give me some direction. Don't
Yeah.
suggest something, because if you've been around, you've been doing this thing, you know better than I do. And I have to understand it. So I got to push ego out of the way and take some direction from you, because I'll
Right.
mess it up.
Right. Well, first of all, very, very well done on more than 6 years sobriety.
5
years sobriety.
That's
That's because I know that's not easy. I have interviewed, I don't have my own personal history, but I've interviewed enough people who were former addicts to know that it's not an easy walk in the park to stay clean and sober. And so very well done you. But even more than that, well done for what you're doing for society and helping others besides yourself. It's huge, Lang, that you do something like that.
Well, one of the things, I know you have a lot of listeners, and is number one, I go to meetings. Number two, I'm very dedicated to the church. 3, I do get mental health. I do see somebody on a regular basis. You know what I mean? And the most important thing is that I keep my promise. Every day I ask for God to put somebody in my life, and they do. Because unless you get out of self, you start going looking back at yourself, it's a bad situation. You got to give it back. You have to. And I'm scared. I mean, I really am scared. I'm scared that if I don't keep my promise to God, I'm scared of going back there.
Yeah.
And I know that if I continue to do what I'm doing, right, tomorrow's going to be okay. I'm not going to use. But I do know when people talk about, I'm a recovering, I say my name's like Martinez, I'm a recovering addict, alcoholic. I'm recovering. Right. I'm not like Martinez, alcoholic or addict. And when I speak at 12-step or whatever, they get kind of upset. But I'm recovering.
No, I disagree with them. I agree with you. You are in recovery. Right. I think that should be the message. When you continuously say over and over again, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, what are you? You're an addict. You're an alcoholic.
Right. And I believe in God, and if God, and I believe in miracles, because I believe I am a miracle. I believe we all are. Yep. I know I know what I've been through. I've seen it, and I know where I'm at today. So I know God's got to be real. So, anybody that's listening, I apologize. I believe my Lord and Savior. That's what I believe. And I surrender, and I do the best I can on a daily basis. And I try to give back to him because he saved my life.
Yep.
And, we talk about that in the 3rd step. Made a decision to turn my will, life over the care of God has understood him. That's my God, is my Lord and Savior. As I understand him, he don't play games.
Right.
You know what I mean? He gave me life. He pulled me out of some badass shit. And I'm here today to talk to you. And I owe. Yeah. I do owe. I owe him, and I owe to others to share my experience, strength, and hope that if I came out of a place where I was slobbering on myself, I was seizing, I've been through a lot. I've been raped. I've seen things happen. I've seen people die. I got 15 years in the prison. I'm dealing with health issues, but I'm going to be okay. Then anybody can do it.
And you mentioned the health issues, and we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, Lang, but I want people to understand, I never know if actual addicts watch or listen to this podcast, or if it's mainly people who are loved ones of addicts and former addicts, but you need to know that long-term drug use destroys the body. I mean, quite aside from the spiritual and mental aspect of addiction, it literally destroys the body. And you, Lang, are going through some health things because of your addiction, right?
Yeah. And it's very important that people, the way I'd like to answer it, I just got off the phone with my sponsor. And I said, I'm going to tell this story that you tell me about being grateful. So I've created a lot of damage to myself with the prison. I've been through the trauma. I'm a meth addict, so I have movement. It's called cardinesia, langitis, or whatever. I get excited. Things start happening like that. I have a rare disease called Behçet's syndrome, and God gave me that because there's like 2 of us in Ventura, and I do stuff in the media or whatever, and they'll say, by the way, Lang, what do you have? And I said, Behçet's. They said, yeah, we know you're full of shit. I said, no, I got Behçet's. And I said, then I spell it to them. So I got a rare autoimmune disease that I have to take shots every 2 weeks. And I see somebody, UCLA, and I just had 2 surgeries to get my eyesight, and it's an autoimmune disease, and there's no cure for it. but I can live a life now because sobriety, you got to take care of yourself, body, soul, and mind.
Yep.
I quit smoking, I'm losing weight, and I want to live.
Yep.
So the next thing is that I've done quite a few things, and I was getting some stuff done on my teeth. You know, I had good teeth. I messed them up with the machetes and the methamphetamine, but I'm blessed. So the blessing is that we've done these things and FUBAR in our body, and we're in the healing process. And what's happened is the blessing today is we get to take care of these things.
Yeah.
So what's happened is with the machetes, I'm taking care of it. I'm not worried about hitting the pookie or finding a new light or to roll the ball. Now I'm making my appointments because I want to live. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful for life, and I want, the humble, and I get to go to these appointments. So that's a blessing. People understand that.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So the teeth, I had surgery because I can't have any foreign objects. So I went to UCLA, and they're going to do something with the lower part of my mouth and give me a grill. I've done a few things, and it doesn't look right, but we're getting it fixed. Yeah. Today, you're not going to believe this one. Today, I'm 60 years old on July 20th. Today, I'm going for a colonoscopy.
Okay.
At 1 o'clock. And because of my machetes, we have to do it in a hospital setting.
Yeah.
Because I take blood thinners. So what's happening, I'm 60 years old, and they checked me, and today's technology, I'll be okay. But they said there might be something there. We'll take some biopsies.
Yeah.
I have to accept it. But by the grace of God, I'm able to do these things. And we do it.
Well, God has a purpose for you. That's very obvious. And he's going to help you no matter what, because you are creating change in the world and you are making a difference. And you are definitely helping yourself and you're helping others. And I think that's huge. Absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Lang, if you had a message to give to our listeners, what would that message be?
Well, can I say one more thing before the message?
Absolutely.
Well, the mask I'm wearing, it's sort of like a plug, but it's not a plug. Is I've been very blessed we have a fiscal sponsorship with NAASCA, NAASCA National Association, and he also is looking for survivors. So you can go to NAASCA.org and get on there and share your experience, strength, and hope.
And I'm going to say, just because it's a little hard sometimes with the mask, but that's NAASCA. That's N like Nancy, A, S like Sam, C like Charlie, A. And it's the National Association of Survivors of Child Abuse.
Yeah, .org. And we're always looking for people that come on that show and share their stories about trauma, whether it's abuse at home. Bill Murray's been around forever, so he's like a father to me. He's been doing this for a long time.
Bill Murray, the actor, the movie star?
No, not the movie star, no.
Sorry.
So
different Bill Murray.
They did is they gave me a fiscal sponsorship. So what's happened is, because of my connections and being blessed, we're starting an organization called Nobody Knows But Me organization. Okay. And what's happened is we're going to hit hard. And what's going to happen is our platform is going to be, it's no longer a secret.
Right.
So we're going to do it no longer a secret. We're going to bring awareness and kind of like do a takeoff, because my story's Hollywood with that. Yeah. So a takeoff in regards to bringing awareness to schools, bring the situation on the street in regards to child molesters, pedophiles, people that hurt children. Bring this up, bring the subject up. Don't go to the movies. We want to bring it here and put it in your face. It's no longer a secret.
Yep.
And so we're gonna, what we want to do is, I saw the movie, and in the part of the movie, the guy gets real emotional when he finds the boy, and the boy wants him to go after his sister, and he walks in there and he says, I'm going after the girl. And he says, well, no, you're done here. And he said, the pieces of me are broken inside. I want to put them back together. That's what we do in addiction. And I saw the emotion, and it's real.
Yep.
And when he went after the girl, and I saw what he went through. So I said, I got people that I'm very blessed to put this together. We want to honor and be able to give money and help out the families that have received these children, and hear their stories, what it's like to raise a child like Lang, or these ones that be. And we also want to honor the men and women that do the job.
Yep.
The ones that are on the trenches. So what happened is, the foundation is basically in honor of a friend of mine, Kevin McDaniel. Kevin McDaniel is another person that believed in me. And the day that we got the okay, I was at his hospital bed.
Oh, no.
This is for you, Kevin. He believed in me. And he actually bought me a car. And he kept calling my attorney. And he said, I believe in Lang. We're going to do this. And I just got him out of a detox. He was in a sober living. He was with me. And I called him. We were down in LA, and I called, and I could hear people yelling in the background. I called Nico, and I said, hey, man, what's going on with Kevin? And they said he's gone into cardiac arrest.
Oh.
So that day, it was 2 weeks ago, I called the pastor, and he showed up, and I got to walk in the room. His family was there. And this is in honor of his daughter, Riley. Riley, a shout out. Your daddy loves you. And I was able to go in there and pray with him. And my best friend, he died. So everything that I'm doing is in honor of Kevin, the foundation, and it's about his daughter, because addiction is so fucked up that people don't understand it. And they say that we ain't capable of loving. Kevin McDaniel loved his daughter more than anything. And her name's Riley. And I told her that whatever I do, it'll be in honor of your father, and it's for you, because Daddy loves you.
I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. So what I would say is, what was the question?
A message for our listeners.
The message is that when you're caught up in addiction, when you have that moment of clarity that you don't want to live like this no more, I call it pulling the trigger. Pulling the trigger is when we're caught up in addiction and we're doing the things that we're doing, no matter who you burned out, we've run across people that God's put in our life that love us and that will help us. There's at least one. There's probably more. So the message is when you have that moment of clarity and you don't want to live like this, and you don't have to go through what Lang did for 55 years, call that person. The moment of clarity is God put that person there. I don't care who it is, a liquor store guy. I mean, it could be the bar, anybody.
Yep.
Just, I don't want to fucking live like this. Make the call and just say, hey, fucking help me.
Yep.
Fucking help me. I surrender. I'm willing to go to any length and just make that call, and then take direction and understand that because whatever you've been doing, this thing is broken. You cannot fix it. You cannot do it alone.
Right.
Addiction, fentanyl, the lives that we live, finding life not on life's terms because we live like this and we think it's comfortable because it's advantageous to be in this 4-block circle, to sit around and do the pookie. That's not life. Life is beautiful. To go to that premiere, I mean, some you get to do it, other people get to do it. But for me to go to something like that, it was off the charts. For me to be able to go to a movie and go outside and eat at Cold Stone, I can get an ice cream now with all the toppings. It's $14 for a freaking ice cream. I can do that today. You can fill up your pipe, for $10 or $15. You ain't got to do that. The joy of that, and to be sit down and look and to breathe the air, to go to the beach and walk it, and really get in tune with what's really there. You don't have to live like that no more. Just make the call. You got to reach out. There's plenty of people to call, walk in, ask God, and just fucking surrender.
And that's a great message. And as I say this every time this time of year, because originally when I started the podcast, I had a young gentleman that was my co-host, and he was a former addict. He is a former addict. And he, the point we would always make right around this month in September is don't think that you're doing anybody any favors by waiting until after the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Do it now, because
this is mental health month.
Yep. Oh, okay. I don't think I knew that, but okay. Yeah.
Suicide prevention. Yeah.
Okay. Lang, thank you for sharing your story. It's obviously a very emotional story, but I appreciate you. Thank you for coming to the premiere. It was quite an experience, and I'm glad you were there. And thank you for everything that you're doing. You're making a difference in the world, and that is huge. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. It was my pleasure. God bless, man.
Thank you for listening today. Once again, the organization that Lang mentioned is the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, NAASCA. You can check it out there. And if you have a story of your own and you'd like to share it with them, it helps because the more people who tell the stories, the more it gets out. And so people don't feel like they have to hide it. It is the end of September. And if you or someone you know needs to get into treatment, do it now. We are headed into the holidays. If you were to start treatment now, you could be clean and sober before the holidays. And that would be my wish for you. We'll be back again next week with another interview.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.